Hello and welcome to BusyWorksBeats.com. Today continues FL Studio Week, Fleek, FL Week. And in this video, we're going to show you how to complete a whole trap beat inside of FL Studio 12. So we're going to start from scratch and show you every step it takes to complete a trap beat. So the steps we're going to go over today are picking the right drums, setting up your chord progression, creating a quick melody, adding your bass line, and then we're going to show you how to quickly mix your track to make it sound a little bit better. Okay, so let's first start. Let's start by importing sounds into our browser. Now the browser is this side on the left. If you haven't watched our FL Studio in 5 easy steps, you want to click this in the video, the link in the video. It'll take you to the other video where we go over how to navigate around FL Studio 12. So we're going to show you, after navigation, we're going to show you how to get into each of these steps and how you're going to apply it on your day-to-day beat creation process. So let's go to options and let's go to file settings. This is going to open up our file settings where we can import under browser extra search folders. We can import drum kits and different sound libraries. So let's click here on this folder and we're going to navigate to our drum kits from busyworksbeats.com. And we're going to include the 808 Science drums for our bass drums. So now you can see on the left side the newly added folder with a plus sign, 808 Science drums. And then we're also going to add the X kit from busyworksbeats.com. So let's go back. Let's go to X drums. So now we see X drums at the bottom here has been added. So now we can access those drum samples from those folders inside of our browser. Okay, so let's click out of the file settings and let's go to the bottom left. And here's where we're going to start picking our kick drum, our snare, our hi-hats, and then we're going to pick our 808s from the 808 Science drums. So I have my subs on so we can hear the 808 tones a little bit better. So first, let's go to kicks. First sounds you want to pick for your drums are the kicks and snares. And we're going to give you the file download for this project so you don't have to worry about trying to find these sounds. Okay, so we have kicks. We're just going to run through the kicks. And it takes, this little clock shows you that it takes time to read the folder. So that's a pretty subby kick. We're just looking for a punchy kick because we're going to be making trap beats today. And you want something that is very punchy and very quick. You don't generally have longer kicks in trap music. Now that's a good 808. Even though it's not a long tonal 808, it's a, you know, there's subtone in it. But that's a good one right there. So here's a nice punchy kick. So what I tell people to do is, the project generally starts with 4 samples in what's called a channel rack. Okay, so this is where all the sounds are going to go. What I like to do is just right click, hit D to delete, and hit enter on these initial 4 sounds just to get rid of them because we're not going to be using them anyway for this track. So when you find sounds in your sampler or in your browser, you want to right click and open in new channel. This is going to open into a new slot in your channel rack. So now the sample is now its own thing, and you can right click and delete the sampler now. They add the sampler so that there's no empty space in the channel rack, but you can delete that as well. So now we found our kick, let's find our snare. Okay, kick and snare are the first 2 sounds you generally start with when building your trap beat. Now we have a specific snare. I'm not going to run through all of them. I already know this is it, snare TR, which is trap. We're going to right click and open in new channel. So now we have the snare and we have a kick. Okay, and those are sounds you hear a lot in trap music. So they're dedicated to this genre. So sound selection is the first step to creating the beats you want to create. And without proper sound selection, you know, you can lead yourself down the wrong rabbit hole. Okay, so you want to get the right sounds before you start. So once you have the kick and the snare, we're going to open up the hi-hats at this point. So we're going to click on hi-hats and cycle through. And I already know this one's good for this type of beat. So I'm going to right click and open in new channel. So notice how once you start to build these habits, it's going to be easier when you're creating beats by yourself. Okay, so we have the hi-hat, we have the snare. Now let's grab a cymbal just for some high frequency activity. I like that one. So let's right click, open in new channel. Okay, so we have our kick, snare, hi-hat, cymbal, and you have to ask yourself, what else do you need? You may need some other effects or anything else, but for now we're going to skip those because we're not going to need them right now. So now we're going to go to the 808 Science Drums folder, and we're going to click here and then pull up an 808. So let me turn my sub down a little bit so we don't rock the studio apart. And let's find a decent 808. So I like the way this one rumbles. It's just nice, solid, and straightforward. So let's right click, open in new channel. Now what we have to do with the 808, I'm going to show you a step that's more advanced, but you're going to need to know it anyway, because you have to tune your 808 samples. A lot of people do not tune their 808 samples, and they confuse their musical notes later down the line. So before we start, let's tune the 808 sample. Let's click on it, left click. Let's right click the sample and go to edit. This is going to pull up the plugin called Edison, which has been redone visually, which looks really cool. Now we're going to click here under the, well, I don't know if it's labeled, but this marker shape here next to the French there. And let's go to detect pitch regions. Okay, so now it's telling us the pitch region here is A. So this means that the 808 is on the note A. So what we have to do is X out of Edison and then go to our 808. We're going to click on the settings window or the envelope tab, and then we're going to right click, okay, where it says root note. You're going to right click on A. That's going to tune our 808 to A. And if you mess up, it's fine. You can always reset. If you do not right click, this is going to mess it up. So you have to right click on A. Okay, and then X out. So now the 808 is tuned, and now we can get on with the rest of our beat. So once you have the drum sounds correctly chosen, then you want to get into creating the drum rhythm. Okay, so let's first set our tempo. Up here, you see a number. This is our tempo, or BPM. How many beats per minute is the song written in? So what we can do is actually close the browser to get that out of the way. Clicking that button up here. Let's go to the BPM, and we're going to set the BPM to about 135. Okay, that's a good trap BPM. 135, 130, 140. The very high BPMs. Okay. Now, what a lot of people have problems with is understanding how to create rhythms. They get locked in this little 4-step sequence. What you can do is actually expand this window, which is the new feature in FL Studio 12. So we can left click the side of the channel rack and drag it out until we see 8 of these segments. So we have a gray segment, red segment, gray, red, gray, red, gray, red. So we have 8 of these segments. Once you have 8 of those segments, they're called beats. And once you have 8 beats, you basically have 2 bars. Okay, so you'll understand that later. We're not going to get into bars and beats and all that, but there's 4 beats per bar. That's all you need to know. So if we count with the metronome, let's turn the metronome on by left clicking, and then you can right click, change this to a hi-hat, which is a little more pleasing to the ear. And then we hit play, you can hear your metronome. So every time the hi-hat hits, that's called a beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a bar. So every time we count to 4, that's 1 bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now in this particular genre, what confuses a lot of people is that we produce in what's called double time. And double time means we're basically using a higher tempo, but the feeling of the track is in a lower tempo. So the reason we use higher tempos is so we can make more microscopic changes in movements without having to be so ridiculous with the MIDI. Okay, so we're in double tempo. Just keep that in mind. So 2 bars in this case is really going to be 1 bar if you were to count at half 135. Okay, so which would be 67.5 BPM. All right, so let's get into creating the track. So first we're going to left click the kick in, and we're going to worry about the kick and the snare. We're not going to worry about the hi-hats yet, just the kick and the snare. So we're going to add a kick, add a snare. Now notice how the snare is not on the red, as usually people are used to that red spot. We're going to put the snare on the gray. So every other gray is going to get a snare. Every other gray is going to get a kick. And you can always check with your metronome. Okay, so this is, excuse me, how slow the track's going to sound. Okay, so at this point, what we're doing is try to generate the idea of double tempo. So you have to get used to double tempo, but once you start producing in double tempo, it's pretty easy once you know where to put the snare. So let's come up with a decent trap rhythm. A decent trap rhythm is boom, 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 boom. Okay, so boom, boom. Now the first thing I like to tell people is translate your beatbox into the drum sequence. So just like I did, boom, 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 boom. If the sequence doesn't sound like that, it's easy to go back and move notes around. Now I'm hitting space to start and stop the song. And the metronome helps me understand where I'm at as far as the measure. So that's a decent trap beat, trap rhythm, I should say. So what we're gonna do from here is click this drop down and we're gonna clone now this is new, so clone selected. I believe this is gonna create a new pattern for us and I'm absolutely wrong. So forget what I just said. Trying to figure out how we clone now. Let's go to drop down. Okay, here it is. So up here near the patterns, we're creating basically patterns, okay? And these patterns I like to call puzzle pieces because ultimately we're gonna combine these patterns to create a bigger picture. So we're on pattern 2 right now. Let's go back to pattern 1, or it doesn't really matter what pattern you're on. Just click the drop down arrow here and we're gonna go to clone pattern. This is going to make a duplicate of pattern 2. If I cycle through pattern 2 and pattern 3, they're the same thing. So on pattern 3, what I have to do is make this different than pattern 2. So to do that, I'm gonna add an extra kick right after the ending snare. Okay, so now we have a little variation, what I like to call it, in our drum rhythm. Now this is just the kick and the snare. Now notice how we're starting to separate things on different patterns. This is another habit you want to build because the more stuff you put into one pattern, the less creative and the less variation you're going to have. It's going to be more complicated to build your song if you put a lot of elements on one pattern. But what a lot of people do is they put a lot of elements on one pattern so they can preview it in what's called the pattern mode. But what you want to do is slowly build your song in the playlist mode. So with that whole thing said, let's go to the playlist now. Clicking that button, and we're going to right click this pattern symbol here, icon, and let's select pattern 2. And then let's right click, select pattern 3. So now we have pattern 2 and pattern 3. We can hit control, left click and drag, and then hit control C to copy and well, this new way is weird. I'm not sure why it doesn't copy and paste right on the grid. I'm not really sure why they did that. Let's see if we can forget what I did before. Anyway, let's right click, select pattern 2, right click, select pattern 3, and let's left click now, control click highlight. Let's see if this works because this is a new function we had in FL Studio 12. We're going to left click and hold, and that's going to make a duplicate. Okay, so that cloned it for us. So you left click and hold whatever you highlight, it's going to make a duplicate, and that's going to be aligned with the grid. For some reason, the copy and paste is weird. I'm not sure what the difference is there. But anyway, that's the new way, I guess, to copy and paste. So now we can click out of this song pattern mode. Now it's in song mode. You can see the timeline just appeared, that little play button icon, the green one. And now we can hit space to hear pattern 2 and 3 back to back to back in the song mode, which is where we're going to arrange the whole track. Okay, so now we have the drums. So on track 1, we can right click and rename this drums. Give it a color if you want. Let's give it maybe green just because it's cool. And track 2, we're going to add percussion. So this is going to be your hi-hat, your extra cymbals, and anything else. So what does that mean? We're going to open up our channel rack. So click that button here, and then we're going to go to a fresh channel rack or pattern 4. And notice how it gives us like a ghost kind of area. Only if you use it, it will be used. Okay, you can use a lot more, but only when you use it, it's going to activate. So we're going to click on the hi-hat for now, and we're going to create a rhythm. So what I like to do before I start to create a rhythm, all I like to do is add one note, and that's going to tell the pattern to be active. So now we can go to the playlist, and we can right click and select pattern 4, and we can left click it in, and I can drag it out to match the length of pattern 2 and pattern 3. So what that does is it basically, I can left click and hold to copy and paste, and I can fill up this whole area with blank patterns. So when I actually create the hi-hat pattern, I can hear it live with the other drums without having to go back and forth between patterns. Okay, so let's hit play and let's go to pattern 4 now, or channel rack 4, whatever, pattern 4, whole bunch of new names here. So now we're going to give the hi-hat some type of rhythm. So you can either go right click, fill each 2 steps. That's a quick way to do it, and that's a good way to do it. So let's do that even further. So now we have the second part activated. Let's right click and fill each 2 steps again so that we can fill the whole section. And what I'm going to do is add a hi-hat right at the end, so it goes now I don't want the same rhythm going throughout the track. I want there to be changes. I want there to be variations. I want there to be what's called hi-hat rolls. So what we're going to do is clone this pattern. We're going to click that pattern options and go to clone, that clone pattern 4, which had the hi-hats in it. Now we're going to right click, send this to what's called piano roll. This is going to give us MIDI for the hi-hats. So what I want to do here is find places where I can add what we call hi-hat rolls. So let's go to pattern play. And I have to find a spot where I want the hi-hat to go, you know, like a longer hi-hat roll. So a good spot would be like right here. So now they updated the MIDI so they're not long notes. So what we can do is we can hit Control to highlight that note. Then we can hit Alt L, and this is the articulator, okay? And we can hit Enter. What that's gonna do is drag out that note. Now for some reason these notes look weird, so I'm gonna hit Alt L again. I don't know why they're overlapping. This is all new functionality. But anyway, we're gonna select this note by hitting Control, highlight, and we're gonna go to Snap to Grid, and let's go to half step. And we're gonna hit Control U to chop up that note. So now it has 4 repeating notes. And that's what we call a hi-hat roll. And what I want this last portion to do is actually go which are called triplet notes. So we're gonna hit Control, delete those last notes. We're gonna left click and drag this note out. And we're gonna hit Control to highlight it. Now we're gonna change our snap to grid to 1/3 beat, not 1/3 step, 1/3 beat. We're gonna hit Control U now, which is the chop tool, and it's gonna make triplet chops. Okay, so now we have a really unique pattern. Okay, and now we can use that as a variation in our playlist. So let's go back to the playlist, or use this button up here. Okay, and we can select or hit Control Shift, left click and highlight. Okay, that lets you select individual patterns. Then we're gonna click the piano keys here, and we're gonna go to select source pattern, pattern 5. Okay, and that's gonna let us cycle through the different hi-hat patterns in the playlist. So go back to song mode or playlist mode and hit play. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is add the cymbal. So we're gonna go to the channel rack. We're gonna go to a new pattern, pattern 6, and all we're gonna do is left click to add a cymbal. Okay, now we can go to the playlist mode. We can right click the pattern button again, and it's already on pattern 6. We're gonna left click that cymbal in every 2 bars or 4 bars. So now let's right click and rename this cymbal. We're gonna hit enter, and of course they're doing construction outside. So we're gonna move into another video and show you the chords, but I'm gonna quickly give you a preview of this video, the drum section, and we're gonna play it back. All right, so click that link below to get this project file and other bonuses that are coming out this week, because this is FL week, aka Fleek, and Fleek will be coming out in a week from now. So click that link below to get your freebies along this whole week, and we're gonna have fun this week with FL Studio 12. So thanks for watching. Please share with your friends. Please like the video, and like if you can hear all that crap in the background. So thanks for watching today's busyworksbeats.com.